10 days after the Grenfell fire, Camden Council took the dramatic decision to evacuate 4 of its tower blocks. Thousands spent weeks in temporary accommodation. Many have since moved back, reassured their homes have now been made safe. But some disagree and feel so strongly they took their fight to stay in hotels to court. Today they lost. So what next? Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
Disruption and uncertainty is the last thing Julian Stevenson needs. He's a cancer patient who's reacting badly to chemotherapy. He and his wife have been in a hotel since the evacuation of the Chalcots estate more than a month ago. But now Camden Council has told them to go home, and they've discovered their tower block is still a building site.
They asked us to go back to the flat to be there while the door was being replaced. And the door didn't turn up for about 3 hours, and my husband was there in extremely dusty circumstances for about 7 hours, which is exactly what we wanted to avoid.
They haven't explained why they are dismissing my my medical situation. They just don't seem to be taking that into account at all, and I'd like to know why.
More residents went back today. Some, like this family, are happy to be home, but others are worried and reluctant to return. The council has posted notices around the estate offering assurances about new safety measures. That sign tells residents that the safety work on all floors has now been signed off by independent inspectors. And the fire service has given its consent for a phased return of tenants. But the 4 high-rise blocks are still wrapped in cladding similar to the deadly combustible material used at Grenfell Tower.
It'd be nice if we had sprinklers installed based on a lot of the evidence that's come out. But I guess over the next weeks and months we'll find out exactly what is going to be done, if Camden Council actually does anything, or whether the money runs out and we suddenly become yesterday's news and forgotten about.
Today, a group of residents were hoping the High Court would order Camden to continue paying hotel bills. But their argument that the towers are unsafe was dismissed.
People don't have friends and family to go to. People don't have the money to be able to have their own accommodation. So it looks like one way or the other. For the time being, Camden have won, and they will force residents back in. There's no doubt.
Camden says although the cladding on the Chalcots estate is similar to Grenfell Tower, the insulation behind it is more fire resistant. But ultimately, the cladding will be taken off.
Today's court case had implications for lots of residents.
Yes, it wasn't just Camden Council anxious about the outcome. If the tenant behind today's High Court challenge had been successful and made Camden go on paying hotel bills, it would have had implications for local authorities across the country. But in the end, Camden Council was successful in convincing the judge that the new fire doors and other fire safety measures have mitigated the risk on the Chalcots estate, and it's safe for the residents, all the residents, to go back. Originally, something like 641 households, around 3,000 people were evacuated. 22 are still in temporary accommodation being paid for by Camden Council. The rest have gone back, although we don't know if there are others who are staying with friends or relatives. But I spoke to residents on the estate today who, although they've gone back, it is reluctantly, they're by no means convinced that they're safe. And I don't think they will be until there are sprinkler systems and all that cladding has gone.
A long time to wait for the public inquiry. Simon Harris, thank you very much. Thank you. Next tonight, one is a cricket star, the other a political leader. But today, both Kevin Peterson and Jeremy Corbyn expressed their anger and disgust at the Arsenal owner's new business venture, an online hunting channel. Our correspondent Simon Harris is at the Emirates tonight. Some stern words from both of them, Simon.
Nina, you might think a TV channel dedicated to hunting and shooting wild animals is an interesting business proposition, but as an exercise in public relations, it's rapidly turning into a car crash for Arsenal's owner. My Outdoor TV is already established in the US. Now it's launched here. Viewers get to watch programmes about all types of hunting, including so-called trophy hunts involving big game and other African wildlife. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, who's an Arsenal fan, said he was appalled at the glorification of killing wild and rare animals. And the former England cricketer Kevin Peterson, who supports African wildlife conservation, said the TV channel sickened him. He told The Independent the guy and those who contribute and support those practices are scum. And this is what one of the more vocal Arsenal supporters groups had to say.
I don't see the attraction in it. I know in some countries they may enjoy that, but this is an animal-loving country and it's just bringing a lot of negativity on Arsenal. And at this time, we just want to concentrate on the real trophies, which are the Premier League, Europa League, you know, any trophy that we're in this season, apart from that sickening type of trophy.
A petition calling on Stan Kroenke to resign now has 10,000 signatures. Arsenal declined to comment, saying his TV enterprise is entirely unconnected to the club. But a spokesman for the TV channel said it only televised legal and what it called ethical hunting. Nina.
Simon Harris, thank you. The Duke of Edinburgh's time as a public servant has ended where it began, in London. That is where he carried out his first solo engagement back in 1948 and where he carried out his final one today. There have been many in between. The incredible total is 22,219. So how did the husband of the world's most famous woman spend his official final day in the London spotlight? Here's our correspondent, Simon Harris.
Wisely wearing a bowler hat and raincoat, this was Prince Philip on parade for the final time. On the rain-lashed forecourt of Buckingham Palace, the Duke took the salute as Royal Marines marched past. For 64 years, he's been the Royal Marines Captain General. Beyond the palace railings, it was umbrellas on parade as tourists and fans strained to get a last look at the veteran royal.
I always thought he was quite a grand figure and very amiable, very friendly, great with the public. Yeah, I like him.
I think he's been a great consort for the Queen. I think he's been a great role model as well. He's got a great sense of humour.
He became Captain General 3 years after I joined the Royal Marines. So all my Royal Marines life, he was Captain General.
From his first royal engagement at the 1948 Federation of Boys Clubs boxing final, the Duke has been a fixture in London society.
Greet you as a citizen and fishmonger of London.
That year, he was granted the freedom of the City of London. In an attempt to lower his profile, he often travelled around in his own private London taxi. But more often, he was at the Queen's side, on the Buckingham Palace balcony, and in all weathers, here in his 90s, getting soaked to the skin on the Thames. Then there were the legendary gaffes. Hannah Jackson's eye-catching red outfit at an event in Bromley in 2012 prompted the Duke to remark, "I would get arrested if I unzipped that dress." In Waltham Forest that year, he met the mayor, who was in a mobility scooter.
So the first thing he said was, have you run anybody over on your scooter? And I didn't crack up laughing, but it really was a funny one, and I'd love to have been able to come back with a response I've thought of after he'd moved on.
The Duke famously has a short fuse on display for all to see in a photo call in Piccadilly 2 years ago. If the Duke found some royal duties tiresome, there was no evidence of that today, and the Marines were determined to give him one last traditional salute. So at the age of 96 and after more than 70 years of public service, the Duke of Edinburgh has finally retired. And what more British way to bow out than in a typically seasonal summer downpour? Simon Harris, ITV News, Buckingham Palace.
Well, I mentioned London 2012 earlier. The buzzword for that was legacy. Well, the man who was credited with bringing the Olympics to London and mastermind it was Lord Coe. He now is the president of the IAAF, the governing body for world athletics. And our political correspondent Simon Harris caught up with him earlier and talked to him about 2012 and 2017.
5 years ago, he was a man on a mission. As he closed the London Olympics, Lord Coe was determined the Games would live up to the ambitious slogan, "Inspire a Generation." So what's his verdict today?
Participation was hemorrhaging. It was hemorrhaging badly. So the very worst you can say is since 2005, when we won the right to stage the Games, up to the opening ceremony, 1.5 million more people were doing sport. I think the biggest challenge we've actually got is that we're a nation that doesn't really do any exercise or physical activity at all. But if you sit down with young people in a London borough, as I did not long ago, and I talked to them about maybe cycling to school, they sort of smile and say, well, the bike gets nicked. And I walk through gang boundaries. That's not about sport. It's not the NHS, that's about local policing.
What does government need to do in your eyes?
I think they need to be entirely coherent and make sure that we don't just sort of sit there saying, well, it's childhood obesity or adult obesity and therefore it's an NHS issue, and it's about actions within that silo. I think you've really got to look at this as a multifaceted issue.
Tonight, Lord Coe is back in the Olympic Stadium, this time in charge of the World Athletics Championships, another part of his Olympic legacy.
What am I most proud of? I'm most proud about the Olympic Park, which I do go back to regularly. I'm proud that sport really was the catalyst for that change.
Are you depressed at the way the stadium's turned out? 750 million plus, possibly rising. Huge cost to transform it every season into an athletics track.
I'll be open with you. I'm not across those types of details. What I do know is that it was important that we stuck to the commitment that government, that the British Olympic Association, that the mayor, that the organising committee, then the bid committee, gave to the IOC, that we would maintain an Olympic, a track and field legacy in there.
But you also promised no white elephants, and despite your best hopes, that stadium is continuing to be a drain on the taxpayer.
Well, it's not a white elephant. You've got a Premier League football club in there pretty much every week. You've got the World Athletics Championships sitting in there. You've had something like 5 world records set in that stadium. We have anniversary games, we have Diamond League, we've had the British Universities Championships, and we have a facility that's open to the community. By any stretch of the imagination, that doesn't fit white elephant definition to me.